Hello, so let's talk about Enneagram 6 again. So, Enneagram 6 is indecisive. Enneagram 6 is doubtful and lacking a sense of inner certainty or security, or is looking for that in the outside world in some way so that they can feel it on the inside. Enneagram is like a spectrum. I like to think of it as like a spectrum almost. It is not that everybody's at the same page, right? So even if you have two different sixes, it's not that they're going to be on the same page. They're going to show up differently. But what is so central to the type 6 structure is that they are lacking a sense of inner security. And so the type 6 might try to, on some level, find that security and that sense of, I know what to do, for example, by asking a lot of questions. This can be expressed as literally consulting a friend or 3 friends about a decision that you want to make, right? It's because the 6 is lacking a sense of inner authority almost. And a lot of 6s will sort of project that to other people and like to the outside world. So they're not every 6 perhaps in every situation, but there's a lot of continuity with themes of authority when it comes to 6. So a lot of 6's central themes are around authority. And so because they lack a sense of inner authority, they can, in some cases now, like I say, this doesn't necessarily apply all across the board, but it's central to the 6's issues, let's say, or the themes of the 6. So because the 6's lack a sense of inner authority, they might sort of put that onto other people, like that person is stronger, that person knows more, that person is the one that I'm supposed to follow, or I trust that person, or I don't trust that person, I don't trust that group, I don't trust this ideology. It can show up in a lot of different ways. So it's interesting. The type 6 is lacking that. It's almost like when they were very little, something happened that made them insecure, and the world seems harsh, and the world seems like it's unstable, and it's going to cause me to feel insecure even more. So the 6 can be someone who just lacks that inner security and that inner wisdom, that in certain levels of health, certainly, it's like they lack that inner wisdom or that inner sense of like knowing what to do. When they're doing better, where they're making decisions more, they can actually become more wise and like knowing what to do, because I think a lot of the 6's themes have to do with quieting the mind. So because the 6 thinks a lot and is sort of so involved with trying to figure things out and asking questions and like trying to find that security by like rummaging and asking and questioning and finding answers and information, they are always in their head. And so I think when we hear about, people needing to step out of their head and find that quiet space inside themselves, like meditation, for example, has a lot to do with that. That can make them be able to make wiser decisions, because anyone can be like that. It's not just the 6s. So if you're always thinking in your head, that's not necessarily going to be conducive to making the correct decision. But if you're allowing yourself to just be still for a while, right, and find that quiet mind and that quiet energy, that is what's going to make a decision kind of come to you. You can kind of tap into your own inner wisdom and your own inner voice when you allow yourself to be in that quiet space. And that's why the 6 has a connection to 9, because the 9 has more to do with that quiet space. And so when the 6 goes to 9, they will be, I've experienced this, is like they can step out of their head for a while temporarily, and they find this kind of quiet, still moment where it's almost like all the information that they have gathered and all the knowledge that they have gathered has now come into like a form, and they are able to pull from it and actually make a decision based off of that, kind of like on a level that is not necessarily conscious. It's like something just comes to you. And I think the 6 has a lot to do with that. When we think of 6s as indecisive, it can be a lot of times because they are so in their head, and they're seeing all the different sides and the different possibilities, and like, what if this happens, what if that happens. Anxiety, is very 6 is very central to the 6 themes. Like, it's central to the 6 experience. So I think when you are talking about anxiety, no matter what type it is, if somebody has anxiety, it's about, a lot of times it's about finding that quiet space. Like, they're probably longing for that quiet space where they're not anxious. And so the 6 is also, when they're going to 9, they're coming out of their head and they're becoming less anxious, and they're actually finding a place where things make sense and things are just more relaxed, and they're able to make the right choice or the right decision about whatever it is they need to do. And 6s are indecisive on a general level, just in general, because they are seeing different sides, and it's hard for a 6 to land. And, with the Enneagram, the 6 can be one of the types that finds it difficult to land on their type and to realize what their type is, or to find what their type is, because they can immediately discard things and immediately go against a certain idea or a certain quality that someone is trying to, put on them, let's say. So if somebody says, you have these qualities, they may not necessarily say you're type 6, but they might say, you have these qualities. The 6 might immediately think, well, no, that's not true. I have the opposite qualities, for example. But that's because the 6 is so much to do with opposites and contradictions. Like, that is part of the 6's structure, is that the 6 can be tough and strong, and also very anxious and agitated. The 6 can be very supportive and loyal. They can also go against people and against groups and society and ideologies. The 6 can be very decisive when they have reached that space of like knowing what to do, or they can be very indecisive, always looking at the other side and not really landing anywhere specific. Like, I could go on and on. The 6 is so much to do with just opposites, and that is part of the 6's structure, is that they kind of can bounce from one end to the other. So that is why 6 is also one of the reasons why the 6 is also one of the reactive types. Right. So 6s, 4s, and 8s are the reactive types. And because, the 6 can react emotionally and strongly when they kind of like, because they're bouncing from one emotional state to another almost. And it can come across in a lot of different ways. So it's not necessarily that, when you meet a 6 that they're going to be like this all over the place sort of person. But there is certainly types of 6s that are just not landing anywhere, and they may just be bouncing from one end to the other, and so it seems like they're kind of frazzled and anxious, and maybe some 6s express a lot of anger or just doubt, very highly reactive, emotional, but also very in the head, very intellectual. So I think 6 is a type that is hard to figure out in some ways. Like, when I was first learning the Enneagram, I didn't really get the 6 that much. I kind of just thought that they're just, that their theme is mainly to do with authority, which is part of it as well, and anxiety. But there's more when you look at like the nuances and the details of what is going on in the 6's psychology. The 6 just seems to be bouncing from one end to the other. And it's not that they're everything. I feel like the 9 would be the type that might be described as like that they are everything, or that they can relate to, all the circle and every point of view and things like that. I think certainly you can have that if you're a 6 with 9 in your trifix. You can have elements of that. But I think the 6 is more that, they might take a position, but then they might see the other side of the position. And then they might seem indecisive because they're kind of jumping off that position that they had to begin with. So it's like they're on the fence because, somebody might say something that makes them see the situation a different way, and that what the other person says might actually make sense to the 6 as well. And so they're kind of jumping off their original point and they're going to the opposite because they now see the other side. And certainly I noticed this in myself, that even when I'm talking, like sometimes I will say something and I'm going into something with my words, but then in my head, I'm already thinking, is that really true? I think the other side is true as well. Or I think the opposite, it kind of creeps into my head. And so it becomes this kind of indecision. And, 6s can be indecisive in a lot of different ways. So I remember when I was a kid, one time my mom asked me something like, do you want to eat something or something like that? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, who knows then? And so I think that was, I was a very anxious child. And I think it was partly that I was kind of frazzled when somebody asks, and I also have 9 in the trifix. So when somebody asks me something and I have to show up immediately, I have to immediately know something. Of course, that is a very small example, do you want dinner or something like that, or what do you want for dinner or something like that. But it's almost like if I'm already anxious, then asking me something and expecting me to kind of know with determination in the moment can be difficult. If you ask me, what is your opinion about this? I will have to kind of search my brain sometimes. I'm not necessarily always going to be able to just come up with what is my opinion about this thing, because I probably thought about it in different ways. But when you expect me to kind of show up in the moment and come out with this opinion now, in the moment, it can be difficult because I can kind of start going in my head and kind of rambling in my head, or just with the way I'm speaking, I might ramble because I'm trying to search for that correctness, what is the truth and what is what I really think. So some 6s can be very indecisive with little things like what to buy in a shop when you want to choose between 2 or 3 items, you don't know which one to buy. I think I have that one a little bit less, but I've seen it happen in, for example, somebody else who I think is a 6 can be very indecisive just in the shop. My 6 indecision can be a lot to do with more bigger things, what to do in a project, or where to lead a project, or where to go next, and what do I want to do, and things like that. And it's definitely something that other types or other people can be very frustrated by, because especially if they don't have 6 anywhere in the trifix, they can get frustrated because they are you are not showing up almost as a decisive person who knows what they want and things like that. So that can get frustrating for other types or for other people, right? And it can be hard to make a decision when you are seeing different viewpoints and you are seeing different, especially because I have 6 and 9 in the trifix, when you're seeing different types, different sides, and you're trying to make up your own mind, it can be hard to do that when you are, especially in this day and age as well, we're being bombarded with so much information. And I think it's also important to kind of take a step back sometimes and kind of just be by yourself and switch off the news and switch off the media. You can't really switch off the media, but to kind of switch yourself off from the media. Because it kind of, maybe the 6 then can kind of go into that quiet space in themselves where the right answers and the right decision will come naturally. And I think if I was advising 6s about making decisions, I would say, try to go to that 9 and the higher side of the 9, and where you're just in that quiet, still space, and you're not so much in your head. So maybe meditate, and then the decisions will come to you, or you will be able to just instinctively make the right decision. Because 9s can be very instinctual. They can be very like sort of, some 9s are kind of disconnected from their own instinctual center, but when they're healthier, they can be very connected to it, and they kind of they're just moving along and they're flowing, and everything just flows. Whereas the 6 is thinking about it in their head, like, what am I going to do? And instead of just letting it happen almost, and just letting the decisions come to you. Because the 6 is very intuitive. So the 6 is trying to think about something and trying to collect information. It depends on other things as well. But it's like they're trying to collect information and see like what's the right thing to do, or what's the the safe thing to do, for example. And like 5s and 7s also are the head types, and so they also kind of are scanning and like gathering information in some way. But the 6 is doing that in a way where they are trying to like seek security, and they're trying to see like, what is this situation? How do I behave in this situation? What do I do in this situation? Like, and who is someone that I can ask a question to if I need to? Where do I go when we're prompted to do this thing? Like, what do I do then? Like, the 6 is in their head about things like that. And I don't know what my point was. I don't know where I was going with the last thing that I said, but I think I did say a lot of different things about 6s here that might apply to you if you're a 6. So leave a comment if you related to any of this, or how you experience 6ness in yourself or somebody else. And subscribe if you want more from me, and leave a like if you like this. Thank you.